The MLB season is finally here, and here are my predictions for the season. And if you haven't already, make sure you check out my divisional previews, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any videos. Starting out in the AL East, in 5th place, the Toronto Blue Jays. They were also in last place last season, and they did get better this offseason with adding Anthony Santander and Andres Jimenez, but they're still in one of the hardest divisions in the MLB. Santander put up 44 home runs last season, and he'll be a great power hitting outfielder for them. And Andres Jimenez is arguably the best defender in the MLB, but it depends on how much offense you get out of Jimenez. Usually Jimenez will put up around 25 doubles and 15 home runs while stealing 30 bases a year. But even though I think they're going to be a pretty good team this season, I think they have the worst roster in the division. Then in 4th place, the Baltimore Orioles. Last season, they were second in their division and had 91 wins, but they lost Corbin Burns this offseason, and they didn't really replace him with anyone near his caliber. And their rotation just concerns me a lot. Right now, it's Zach Eflin, Charlie Morton, Dean Kremer, Tamayuki Sagano, and Cade Povich. Then they'll eventually have Grayson Rodriguez, but right now he's out with elbow inflammation. But they still have a great lineup with Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Cedric Mullins, Jordan Westberg, Colton Cowser, Tyler O'Neill, Ryan O'Hearn, Ryan Mountcastle, and Jackson Holliday. But I think their starting rotation is really going to hold them back this season. Then in 3rd place, the Rays. Last season they were in 4th place, but they're getting back their ace this season with Shane McClanahan. And in the last 2 seasons he's pitched, he was an all-star each season. Then in 2023, in his 21 starts, he had a 3.2 ERA, a 1.1 whip, and 121 strikeouts. And they're going to have Junior Caminara this entire season. And if he lives up to his potential, he could be a guy that hits 30 doubles and 30 home runs a year. And once he's back from his shoulder surgery, they're going to have Ha-Sung Kim. And I just like their roster a lot. Then number 2, the New York Yankees. Even though they lost Juan Soto this offseason, they brought in a lot of great pieces to fill out this roster with Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt. Then I had a massive addition at starting pitcher with Max Fried, and got one of the best closers in the MLB in Devin Williams. But Garrett Cole is out for the season with Tommy John surgery, and now their rotation's not looking as good with Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, Clark Schmidt, and Will Warren. But we all know the Yankees are probably going to trade for another starter later in the season. But the reason I don't have them in first place is I'm already concerned about the injuries. They already have Garrett Cole out for the season, and Judge has only had back-to-back healthy seasons once in his career, and that was in 2021 and 2022, where he played 148 games, then he played 157 games. But usually when he plays 150 games, the next season he plays less than 110. Then in first place, the Boston Red Sox. In my opinion, they have by far the best roster in this division, and they got Alex Bregman this offseason and Garrett Crochet. And they're also going to have their top 3 prospects up this season, and Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, and Christian Campbell. And they have a lot of pitching depth with Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, Walker Buehler, Brian Bayo, Cutter Crawford, Lucas Giolito, and Patrick Sandoval. Then moving over to the AL Central, in 5th place, the Chicago White Sox. They're coming off one of the worst seasons in MLB history, where they went 41 and 121, and they still arguably have the worst roster in the MLB. I think it's between them and the Marlins, but the Marlins have a better pitching staff. I do expect them to trade Luis Robert this season, but I think they could have a really good rotation in the next 2 or 3 years, because their number 1 prospect, Noah Schultz, is coming up this season, and I think Drew Thorpe is going to be very good. The next season, Hagen Smith is going to be coming up, but overall, the White Sox are going to be very bad this season as well. Then in 4th place, the Detroit Tigers. Last season, they did come in 2nd place in the division, but the Central is very competitive, and everything went perfect for them at the end of last season, and I just don't know if they can repeat that. They had a good addition with Gleyber Torres and bringing back Jack Flaherty. Then in 3rd place, the Minnesota Twins. They were very good in the first half of last season, but really struggled in the second half. I think their success is going to be dependent on how healthy Byron Buxton and Royce Lewis are going to be. Buxton is coming off his second career 100-game season, and he played in 102 games last year. That was the first time he played over 100 games since 2017. Then Royce Lewis last season in his 3rd year played 82 games, and in those 82 games, he had 16 doubles, 16 home runs, and 47 RBIs. And if he's healthy, I think he could be an MVP candidate. Overall, they have a very good roster, but a lot of their players are injury prone. Then in second place, the Kansas City Royals. They had a very good addition to this roster with Jonathan India, and that gives them a very good hitter in front of Bobby Witt. And they still have a great rotation with Cole Reagan, Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, Michael Lorenzen, and Chris Bubich. And they got a good closer in Carlos Estevez. And last season, Estevez had a 2.45 ERA and 26 saves. Then in first place, I have the Cleveland Guardians. They won the division last year and won 92 games, but this season they're just projected to be in fourth place, but I just don't agree with that. They did trade away Josh Naylor and Andres Jimenez, and both of those are big losses, but I think Guardians are going to be better off without Andres Jimenez, at least on the offensive side, because that now opens up second base for Travis Bazana later in the season. And also for the start of the season, they could have Juan Burrito play second base, and that's who they got in the Nolan Jones trade. But I do think they're going to miss Josh Naylor a lot. Carlos Santana, even at the age of 39, he still puts up 20 home runs a year, but I do think Kyle Manzardo is going to have a breakout season. And I really think Brian Rocchio is going to have a breakout season as well. He played amazing in the playoffs last season, and he's playing really good in spring training as well. And they still have Steven Kwan, Jose Ramirez, and Lane Thomas. And last season, they had the #1 bullpen in the MLB, and I think it even got better this offseason by bringing in Paul Sewald and Jacob Junis. Then later in the season, they're going to have Shane Bieber back, and they'll have John Means. Then moving over to the AL West, in fifth place, the Los Angeles Angels. Overall, the Angels roster did get better this offseason with Jorge Soler and Yusei Kikuchi. And even though Yusei Kikuchi is a good pitcher, he's not an ace. On a good team, he's probably a 3 or 4 starter, and Soler's going to give Trout some good protection in that lineup, but they really need Mike Trout to stay healthy this season. He's only played over 100 games once in the last 5 seasons. But if everything goes right, I think they have a pretty good lineup, but I still think they don't have a good enough pitching staff. Then in fourth place, I have the Houston Astros. They traded away Kyle Tucker this offseason and lost Alex Bregman. And even though they got Isaac Paredes and Christian Walker, I think their lineup is going to be much worse than last season. And I just don't think their outfield's going to be that good with Chas McCormick, Mauricio Dubon, and Jake Myers. I know they're moving Mauricio Dubon to second base and Jose Altuve to left field. Then in third place, the A's. This season, the A's are going to be playing in Sacramento, and I think they have a really good team. Lawrence Butler's coming off a breakout season, and he just got a big 7-year, $65.5 million contract. Then Brent Rooker's coming off a 39 home run season, and they still have JJ Bleday, Shea Langoliers, Tyler Soderstrom, Zach Geloff, Seth Brown, Gio Urshela, and Jacob Wilson. I really think Jacob Wilson's going to have a really good season. In his minor league career, he's hitting well over 400, and he did struggle in his first few games last season in the majors, but I think he's really going to break out this year. Then they added Luis Severino and Jeffrey Springs to that rotation, and they still have one of the best closers in the MLB in Mason Miller. Then in second place, the Seattle Mariners. They have the best rotation in the AL with Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, and George Kirby, but their hitting's not where it needs to be. They have Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, and Randy Arozarena, but other than those three, their offense is not that good, and I think their offense is just going to hold them back a lot, because even if you have one of the best pitching staffs, you could still lose a lot of games, 1-0 or 2-0. Then in first place, the Texas Rangers. They won the World Series in 2023, and they did come in third place in the division last season, but they struggled with a lot of injuries. They're going to have Jacob deGrom back this season, and they added Jock Peterson and Jake Berger to an already stacked lineup. Then moving over to the NL East, in fifth place, the Miami Marlins. Like I said earlier, they have arguably the worst roster in the MLB, at least offensively. They are getting Sandy Alcantara back this season, and when he's healthy, he's going to put up 180 plus innings, but I think they're going to end up trading him later in the year. They do have a young, exciting shortstop with Xavier Edwards. In 70 games last season, he batted .328 and had 12 doubles and 5 triples, while also stealing 31 bases. Then in fourth place, this might be a big surprise, but I have the Atlanta Braves. They're already entering the season with 3 big-name players on the injured list, with Spencer Strider, Ronald Acuna Jr., and Sean Murphy. Strider's probably going to miss the first month of the season, Acuna's probably going to miss a month and a half to 2 months, and Sean Murphy is probably going to miss around a month with a cracked rib. And I think the AL East is just going to be very competitive this season. In third place, I have the Washington Nationals. I think they're ready to have a breakout season as a team, with CJ Abrams, Dylan Cruz, and James Wood at the top of that lineup. And they they added in Josh Bell, Nathaniel Lowe, and Paul DeYoung. And they still have a good rotation. And they added in 2 good veteran relievers with Jorge Lopez and Lucas Sims. Then in second place, I have the New York Mets. They have an amazing top 5 of their lineup with Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, and Mark Vientos. But 6 through 9 in their lineup is very questionable. I think they need to add another hitter later in the season. Then in first place, the Philadelphia Phillies. I think overall they have the best roster in the division, and they have a very good rotation with Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, and Jesus Luzardo, and they still have Taijuan Walker, and he's projected to be in the bullpen this season. Then in the NL Central, in fifth place, the St. Louis Cardinals. They did finish last season in second place in their division, but their starting rotation I don't think is that good. They have 2 solid pitchers at the top with Sonny Gray and Eric Fetty, and they have a great closer with Ryan Helsley. He led the MLB in saves last season, but overall I think they're not going to be as good this season. Then in fourth place, the Pittsburgh Pirates. I want to put them higher up in their division, but I just don't really believe in that lineup. They have 2 great hitters with Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz, and 2 good veterans with Tommy Pham and Andrew McCutchen, but I think their lineup is going to be much better next season when Tamar Johnson comes up. But they still do have a really good rotation with Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, Jared Jones, Andrew Heaney, and Bailey Falter. Then in third place, the Milwaukee Brewers. They're another team like the Cleveland Guardians that always fix pitchers and always seem to win, even with not the greatest roster. But this offseason, they lost Willy Adames, and they traded away their closer, Devin Williams. I think Jackson Chourio is going to have a really big season. He played really good last year. He batted .275 with 29 doubles, 21 home runs, and 22 stolen bases. And I think he's just going to get even better. And they still have Christian Yelich and William Contreras, but I still think they're going to be much worse than last season. Then in second place, the Cincinnati Reds. They brought in future Hall of Fame manager Terry Francona this offseason, and that should elevate their team a lot. And they got Gavin Lux, and he's a great hitter. And their rotation's looking pretty good with Hunter Green, Brady Singer, Nick Lodolo, Nick Martinez, and Andrew Abbott. And they're also going to have Rhett Lauder, and he looked very good in the majors in his first 6 starts. And in those 6 starts, he pitched 30.2 innings and had a 1.17 ERA and 22 strikeouts. Then in first place, the Chicago Cubs. They have a pretty deep lineup, and they now have a superstar hitter in Kyle Tucker. And when he's healthy, he's going to put up over 30 doubles, 30 home runs, and 100 RBIs. And they're going to have their number 1 prospect, Matt Shaw, up this season. Then in the NL West, in fifth place, the Colorado Rockies. Overall, this team is not that good. They don't have a great pitching staff, and they have a really young lineup. And this is a season where they're going to have a lot of their top prospects coming up. So I think this is going to be a pretty bad season for them, but they'll be building on their future. And this is where it gets very hard because I think this is the best division in the MLB. And I think 2 through 4 are all interchangeable. But in fourth place, I have the San Francisco Giants. They got their franchise shortstop this offseason with Willy Adames, and he's a guy that's going to hit 30 doubles, 30 home runs, and play good defense. And they're going to have their center fielder back with Jung Hoo Lee. Then I think they could have a good rotation with Logan Webb, Justin Verlander, Robbie Ray, Jordan Hicks, and Hayden Birdsong. The only thing is, Justin Verlander played pretty bad last season, having over a 5 ERA in his 17 starts. Then in third place, the San Diego Padres. They lost 2 big parts of their offense from last season with Jerickson Profar and Ha-Sung Kim, and they lost their closer from the second half of last season, Tanner Scott. But overall, the top 6 of that lineup is very good, with Luis Arraez, Fernando Tatis Jr., Jackson Merrill, Manny Machado, Jake Cronenworth, and Xander Bogaerts. And they still have a solid top 4 of that rotation, with Dylan Cease, Michael King, Yu Darvish, and Nick Pivetta. And Joe Musgrove is going to be out for the entire season since he had Tommy John surgery in October of last season. Then in second place, the Arizona Diamondbacks. They had a very good offseason, bringing in Josh Naylor and Corbin Burns. Corbin Carroll's coming off a down season compared to his rookie year, but still had 22 doubles, 14 triples, and 22 home runs, and still had 35 stolen bases. And I think he'll have a bounce back year. Then Ketel Marte's coming off the best season of his career, and with Josh Naylor Taylor. They're adding a great hitting first baseman, and he could put up 30 doubles, 30 home runs, and over 100 RBIs. Then their rotation is really good, with Corbin Burns, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Brandon Pfaadt. Then in first place, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Once again, they signed some of the biggest name free agents, and it still seems like they have unlimited money. This offseason, they were able to sign Blake Snell, Roki Sasaki, and Tanner Scott, and even after winning the World Series last year, they got even better. They have all the pitching depth in the world, with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, Clayton Kershaw, Bobby Miller, and eventually Shohei Ohtani. And they just overall have the best roster in the MLB by far. So moving over to the playoff predictions, in the AL, the number 1 seed, Boston Red Sox, number 2, Cleveland Guardians, number 3, the Texas Rangers, then 4, the Royals, 5, the Yankees, and 6, the Twins. Then the NL, number 1, the Dodgers, number 2, the Phillies, number 3, the Cubs, number 4, the Diamondbacks, number 5, the Mets, and number 6, the Padres. So in the wildcard round, starting out in the AL, the Twins versus the Rangers, I have the Rangers winning. Then the Yankees versus the Royals, I have the Royals winning. Then in the NL, the Padres versus the Cubs, I have the Cubs winning. Then the Mets versus the Diamondbacks will win. Then in the divisional series, the Guardians versus the Rangers will win. Then the Red Sox versus the Royals, the Red Sox will win. Then the Phillies versus the Cubs, I have the Phillies winning. And the Dodgers versus the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers will win. So in the championship series, the Rangers versus the Red Sox, I have the Red Sox winning. And the Phillies versus the Dodgers, I have the Dodgers winning. So the World Series, I have the Red Sox versus the Dodgers, and I have the Red Sox winning the 2025 World Series. Then for the awards, for AL MVP, I have it going to Bobby Witt Jr., and the NL MVP, I have Elly De La Cruz. Then the AL Cy Young, Garrett Crochet, and the NL Cy Young, Paul Skeens. Then for Rookie of the Year in the AL, I have Jacob Wilson. Then in the NL, I have Rhett Lauder. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Goodbye.